When we read Chapter 8 of Muggy Maggie, I asked you, how did Maggie finally learn to write in cursive? Connor, you were absolutely right. She went in her room and she practiced. So when you practice and practice and practice something, you learn. Chapter 8. On Monday, Maggie looked at the words Mrs. Leeper had written on the chalkboard and discovered she was reading them because she couldn't help it. Mrs. Leeper had written, "This is going to be a happy week. We are going on a field trip." Maggie was eager to carry the next message. She did not have to wait long for Mrs. Leeper to write a note to the principal. As soon as she closed the door quietly, no slamming, Maggie slipped out the note that was written on the back of the old arithmetic paper and read the neatly formed words. Maggie is now reading cursive. I saw her reading what I had written on the chalkboard. If she can read it, she can write it. She just won't admit it. Maggie was shocked. Maggie was angry. Mrs. Leeper had guessed she would peek. Maybe she had guessed all along, and now that Maggie could read cursive, she was saying mean things about her. But worst of all, Mrs. Leeper was waiting for an answer. Maggie wanted to crumple the note, but if she did that, Mrs. Leeper would want to know why Mr. Galloway had not sent a reply. She returned the note to its tattered envelope, dragging her feet to the principal's office, and thrusted it at him. She stood staring at the floor while he read it. He murmured, and Maggie heard his pen move across paper. "There you go, Maggie," he said as he handed the remains of the envelope back to her. "Thank you." "You're welcome," said Maggie, and she got out of his office as fast as she could without running. I won't peek, she told herself. But of course, she finally had to peek. What normal third graders wouldn't want to know what the principal had to say in time for crisis. The note said, "Hooray! I can tell by the way she behaves that you are right. Good teaching, Laura. I knew you could do it. And congratulations, Maggie." Figuring out the long word before her name took a while. And then, well, first of all, Maggie was astonished that Mr. Galloway would call a teacher by her first name. Then, Maggie was indignant. Mrs. Leeper hadn't done a thing. Maggie had done all the work. And now her teacher was getting all the credit? Maggie dreaded returning to her classroom. She plodded along, trying to figure out how she could avoid it. She couldn't, not even if she took time to go to the bathroom. Sooner or later, she had to face her teacher. With red cheeks, she handed her teacher the remains of the envelope and was about to hurry to her seat when Mrs. Leeper caught her hand, pulled Maggie to her, gave her a big hug, and said, "I don't think we need a message monitor anymore. Anyway, the envelope is worn out." She tossed it, along with the note, and to the wastebasket and said, "This is a happy day, Maggie." Maggie was both pleased and confused. She had expected Mrs. Leeper to say something about cursive, but the teacher had not. She had not even said, "It's about time," or "I knew you could do it." She just smiled at Maggie, who finally felt she could smile back. "You know something, Mrs. Leeper," Maggie said shyly. "Your cursive is neater than any other teacher's cursive." Mrs. Leeper laughed. "It has to be. I'm the one who teaches it." Maggie walked slowly to her seat. She could now make her letters flow together, and she had made her teacher happy. But maybe when she grew up and did not have to please grown-ups all the time, she might decide not to write cursive. She could print anytime she wanted. She had plenty of time to think it over. "Muggy Maggie," said Kirby, "teacher's pet." Maggie decided against pushing the table into his stomach. Instead, she sat down and wrote a note in cursive, which she shoved across her table. You stop pushing the table into my stomach. Sincerely, Maggie. And that is the end of Muggy Maggie. So now you know where she got that name, Muggy Maggie. And was it a good ending? Let me know at the bottom. Comment below.